Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mysidia Post. My name is Alex Scott.
Hello, my name is Travis Pfeifer.
And today we're going to be reviewing some Opus X cards, and we're going to do the lightning cards for this set. So without further ado, let's get into the first one. It is Alice, which is a 5 CP backup. When Alice enters the field or at the beginning of your main phase 1, during each of your turns, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a Job Dragoon or card name Dragoon, add it to your hand. If it is not a Job Dragoon or card name Dragoon, put it into the break zone. So you can also put Alice into the break zone and choose one forward and dull it. And he's also a Job Prince, which is relevant because that Puge, or whatever his name is, the FF11 for CPEX burst forward, can search him. And he can be activated by Clady, which again is probably pretty irrelevant, but I think we mentioned that last video with another card. I actually never saw this dull and break ability when he was spoiled.
Oh, really?
I never saw, because I think that there was so much focus on his first ability that, I don't know, just totally glanced by. Anyway, so this is a draw an extra card every single turn if your deck is 100% Dragoons, which is pretty cool. That would mean you're playing one Alice and 49 Dragoons. You're probably not doing that. So this has a chance to mill a card kind of into your break zone, but that's not so bad if you're still drawing 2 cards per turn and you're not planning on going for a long game. Then at the very least he's not killing you, but that extra CP cost does mean that he's going to put you at a bit of a disadvantage, so you need him to draw you a card pretty quickly. So he's essentially like a 3 CP forward, so it's similar to playing Minwoo or playing a booster in that you're going to be down a little bit of card advantage compared to your opponent, but overall in a Dragoon deck, I think that this is going to be well worth the investment. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's a very kind of pricey, high-risk, high-reward card. The effect is not optional, of course, so you have to do it every turn. But yeah, I would really love to see someone take this and just see what they can do with the Dragoon effect. In particular, I like cards like this that not only is it at the beginning of the main phase, but it's also when he enters the field, which is nice, so you do get that immediate value. It's not like, oh, well, I gotta wait a turn. So that's really nice. And in particular, I think what saves this card from being just kind of wretched is the fact that at any time he can dull himself and put him into the break zone. So basically, if you ever get tired of it, if you're like, all right, this is just getting too risky, you can just end the effect, when you want to. So I do like that about it. Yeah, he seems really neat. I like cards like this that have these kind of, synergetic effects with certain jobs and just very unique. So I really like the card.
Yeah, I also very excited to see that it's a enter the field and every turn, so that was very huge because I could have seen them easily printing it without that. Okay, how about our next sure-to-be lightning staple?
Yes, this is Aldo. He is a 4-cost backup, leader of the Tenshodo, 11 character. When Aldo enters the field, you may search for 1 lightning forward and add it to your hand. I'm not 100% sure which elements have this searcher, but I know I think there's one in Earth, right?
Yes, and water.
And in water, okay. And so, yeah, those searchers have already proven to be very good, and Aldo is no exception. Comes down, yeah, he's a little pricier at 4 CP, but you can pull any lightning forward you want out of your deck. So if there's a certain key piece you're needing, you can just go right to it. I learned last night, actually, using the card Meath for the first time in Fire, just how valuable it can be when you need a very certain card and to be able to go, oh, I'll just pull that right out. Like, that has a lot of value.
Yes, and for Lightning specifically, this is going to grab so many good things that we maybe didn't have a specific searcher for. We did, Gabranth last set helped to search for some of our higher cost cards, but this is just another way to search for your Golbez. This is a way to search for your 7 CP Fusoya, and just in general, it's also going to search for your Warriors of Darkness and Lightning, which is pretty exciting as well to get an Alba or a Diana. So I'm pretty excited about this card, and it also has a good interaction with a card that we're going to talk about soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so next up we have Willis, which was a total enigma when he was spoiled because we just didn't know what this Judge of Wings would do.
Yeah.
Now we've seen Judge of Wings, and he's actually a pretty cool card in his own right, but the combination between the two is going to be harder to pull off than we had hoped. So let's read this guy. He's a 2 CP forward, 5k power, job warrior, which is very relevant in making him boostable and searchable in this game. So if you control a card named Judge of Wings, Willis gains 3,000 power, and Willis must attack each turn, once per turn if possible, and when Willis is put from the field to the break zone, choose one forward of cost 4 or less your opponent controls and break it. So that's a really, really good ability. He's going to become this removal. Your opponent's not going to block him because they don't want to lose their forward. So he's either going to be pushing damage or he is blocked and then you get to break something. There's some scenarios where they have 5 cost or higher forwards, or they have something they don't care about losing. But for the most part, I think that it's 2 CP. That's going to be pretty incredible value. So we'll just have to take a look at Judge of Wings and kind of revisit this guy.
These characters must be from Revenant Wings, I'm guessing, 12, because it's been a bit since I've played 12, but I don't remember these characters at all, so I'm guessing They're from Revenant Wings. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that at 2 CP, 5k, he's honestly kind of like even just fine just at that cost for that power. And so the fact that Judge of Wings will put him up to 8k for 2 CP. And yeah, any card that's forced to attack or forced to block, generally those can be kind of a pain. But again, I feel like this is pretty smart design, and because of his second effect, well, generally you're probably not going to want to block him, like you said, because then he could possibly take something out on the block and then take out an additional thing when he goes down. So, and again, when you're as cheap as 2 CP, even if this kind of goes awry and like it somehow backfires on you, I mean, you spent 2 CP on it, so you're not complaining about that.
Yeah, back in the Veritas meta when we were seeing a lot of it too, I mean, cards were just...
in the Veritas meta? Are you saying Veritas doesn't exist still?
I'm saying that he's died down for sure. Like there was a point where he was in like every deck, and I think a lot of decks tried to find efficient 2 CP forwards to put in. So at the very worst, he's a Veritas sack target, which is great. Right. Okay, awesome. One other thing about these cards, all these Revenant Wing cards, they have these kind of colored backgrounds, and I think they actually look really good in person. Yeah, like when I saw all of these images, I was like, okay, whatever, this is a card. But when you see that in person, I actually like that a lot more than some of the white backgrounds or other types of backgrounds. Yeah, I agree. Okay, awesome. Let's roll on.
The Mighty Garland, villain of Final Fantasy I. So Garland is a 3 cost, 9k forward. He's a job knight. He has first strike. When Garland enters the field, select one character of cost 3 or less other than Garland you control. Put it into the break zone. So 3 cost, 9k first strike, stat-wise is bonkers. That's really, really, really powerful. So... understandably why they put an effect on him where basically he's going to cost you someone as soon as he comes in. If this were in any other element, I wouldn't like it at all. I would think, that's just not worth it. But Lightning has kind of, a big part of Lightning's game is Lightning has a lot of backups that it wants to break, and it actually wants to go to the break zone. So you can easily set up a combo with this guy with a card we'll talk about a little later. There's that Lightning Fusoya. Like, Lightning has always had such an interesting relationship with its backups because it wants to get them out really quick, but then it has no problem breaking some of them because a lot of them go to the break zone effect. So if you build around Garland, he can be very, very strong. Like, that's a big threat to have on the board. 3 cost, 9k first strike, and he's not going to die to a Diabolos. He's something your opponent's basically going to have to answer him with some type of removal because in battle, he's basically going to be unbeatable.
I love Garland. I think he's got some of the best art, and he's got so many cool cards. None of the cards that he's got 2 lightning cards and 3 fire cards now, and none of them have been like top tier. I think this is one of the closer ones. I think it's going to be really good in specific decks that want to break backups. And then otherwise, I think that he can be removed by plenty of things. But I think he won't see play in like mono lightning necessarily, but he'll see play in lightning decks. And the interaction that we were talking about is that he can be searched with Aldo on turn 1 and then played on turn 2, and there's nothing to break. So if you have characters of cost 4 or more on the field, he won't break anything. He doesn't break himself, so you can also just play him on an empty board by himself, and he won't break anything. So there's ways to navigate that weakness as well.
Wow, I hadn't even considered that. That's a great point. You can completely negate that with the right board state.
Okay, next up we have Kalia Cheval, which is a 2 CP backup. He is a Chancellor, and he has a Lightning Doll. Put Kalia Cheval into the break zone, choose one category type 0 card into from your break zone into your hand. This is the best type of recursion effect, where it says choose a category type card, because that's a summon, a forward, a monster, a backup. Yep. It's anything. That's really good.
And the elements are relevant.
And I also love 1 CP and a dull and break as a recursion, because that leaves on a full board, that leaves 3 backups up, which means you can play odd costed things that you recurred, which is also very handy. This is all the while still making it fair that if you did bring back a Bahamut Zero, the most likely target for this card, that you can't play it off easily off backups, and you would have to discard 2 for the Bahamut Zero that turn. So I think in like its recursion math that it's like the perfect card. This could even go well in cadets, because bringing back any type 0 card can be pretty relevant. I can't really think of other type 0 cards in regular decks that you might be bringing back, but it's more than great for just bringing back Bahamut Zeros.
Wow. I hadn't really rated this card at all when I first saw it, but you totally just sold me on it and showed me like the applications of it. Well done. I've got nothing else to add.
Awesome. Okay, well, we've got a monster that I've been playing a ton of so far.
This is Kanakumi. Not quite sure how to pronounce it, so let's say Kanakumi. Kanakumi is a 3-cost monster, Wyvern, category 13. Put Kanakumi into the break zone. Choose 1 forward. It loses 7,000 power until the end of the turn. Damage 5 effect. Put Kanakumi into the break zone. Choose a forward. It loses 9,000 power until the end of this turn. Losing power and power reduction is vastly superior to outright damage. There are a lot of the things in the game that prevent against outright damage, whether it be Ishtola, Minwu, Venuzadon. But to my knowledge, there is nothing in the game currently that protects you from power reduction. And hopefully it will stay that way, because I think that's very good, and that needs to be a unique effect. So, again, if this was just 7k damage, it'd probably be kind of like, but the fact that it's lose power, it means when they're forward swinging in, you can, boom, break it, and suddenly their 10k forward is only 3k. Or if you're 5 damage, suddenly it's only 1k. Which is great. And like some of the other monsters we've seen in the set, there's no dull to this ability. So as soon as he comes on the field, you can pop him at any time to use his effect, which again makes him really good against monster hate, because if someone has something that'll break a monster, okay, in response, boom, something loses 7,000 power. So he seems very strong. I really like the artwork. Originally, I was kind of thinking, well, I still don't know where I would run this for deck space, but honestly, the more I'm thinking about, like, that's pretty good. Loss of 7,000 power, that's nothing to sneeze at. What do you think?
I love this card. I run it in my Wind Lightning deck because I have a lot of ping. So with things like the backup Wind Pinello or things like Alhanalem, this can very quickly become a good spot of removal. When you're coming up against things like Minwu and you lower something to 1,000, 2,000 power, all of a sudden your ping works again because it's not doing less than their power. So he's been a real clutch card for me in that deck. I also run him with one Opus, I think it's Opus 3 Azul. So that's a 5 CP lightning forward that when it dies, it brings back a lightning monster of 3 cost 3 or less and plays it directly back onto the field. So you play this 5 CP guy, and then whenever he dies, it just plays this straight back onto the field, which is pretty nice.
That's great.
So yeah, with this being power reduction, completely makes the card. Late game, it's it's a monster, and honestly, I'm really high on this card right now. So
I would also like to add that honestly, this would be good if it just had its first effect, and the fact that at
Yeah.
5 damage
Oh,
it
yeah.
can go up by 2 more. That's just like that's icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next up we have Zydo, which has 2 abilities. You can dull and break them and give a forward first strike, or you can dull and put them into the break zone and choose one category type 0 forward and give it haste and first strike. I should also mention that he is a 2-cost backup job provost. So this is similar to the Lancer backup that we had back in Opus 5. And so that card didn't really see much play. I mean, the effect is pretty good to threaten, but breaking a backup's really tough. So it's not like it's not a bad card by any means, but I don't think any of these like new Type 0 backups that give boosts to Type 0 cards are really that relevant, because breaking backups is not as popular as it used to be.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I just don't know where I'd put this guy, because especially like if I'm thinking of Type 0 characters, most of the Type 0 characters, especially the cadets, like generally they have a lot of power anyway, so I've never felt like, oh man, if only this, 13k king had first strike as well. And like you said, I do appreciate that the break, there's no added cost to the break, so you can just break him on his own, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, again, it's one of these weird cards where like technically the text is all good. I don't know where I would slot this in. Like, I don't know if he's worth kind of building around and finding a way in there for him.
Okay, so how about some more on-theme card draw for Lightning?
This is 2 costs, 5k forward, named Sakura. Sakura, which I believe means cherry blossom in Japanese. One of my favorite Japanese names. When Sakura enters the field, if your opponent controls a damaged forward, draw 2 cards. So I had a lot of hopes for this card when I first saw it, and I thought it was going to be really good. However, there's since been a big discussion on the Facebook group, and it was, what's the word I'm looking for? And it was made clear on Twitter and by the rules that this card does not work off of Al Cid, which is what the biggest combo I immediately thought of when I thought of this. So, because the most common combo from Opus 1, okay, Al Cid into the Onion Knight, boom, ping something for 11k, and you get out a new forward. So I thought, okay, well that's pretty valuable if you Al Cid into this and then you get to draw 2 cards, but it doesn't work that way because of the way her condition reads. They have to have damage on them the moment she enters the field. So she doesn't work with Al Cid. She doesn't work with 2-cost Phoenix. I believe she does still work with 3-cost Phoenix, because I think that one technically damages the forward first before the person comes in. But either way, because she doesn't work with Al Cid, and maybe I'm just not familiar enough with Lightning, I just find this hard to play, because what you specifically want to do, what you have to do to get her effect to work, and if you don't get her effect to work, she's pointless. Like, literally, she's there for her effect. You have to damage your opponents, but not kill them. Like, so you just want to put enough damage on them so that she can come in and trigger. Sure, I guess you could build a deck around this, like Wind Lightning, like you said. Well, I'll just put in Pinello, just ping them, and that way I can throw them down for Sakura. But I don't know, like, knowing how Lightning works, like, Lightning has a lot of stuff that when it zaps them, it generally wants to kill them or have a combo off of that. So maybe I'm not giving her enough credit. Maybe there's a build with her that can work. But because she doesn't work with just that classic combo or even the Phoenix Resurrection, I don't know. That really lowered my opinion of her. What do you feel?
I was also disappointed by that. I do use her in Wind Lightning, and she works because you have things like Cactar and Pinello, and like, so it's just way in Alhanalem and stuff. So it's way easier to not only just play her, but also do the ping, play her, and do a second ping. So in that, again, a very specific deck, she works. Looking at a more common deck like Mono Lightning, your main way to do this is pretty much going to be your Alphino backup that you're playing already to ramp, but then you're kind of playing her like a 4 CP forward that draws 2, which still isn't terrible, but the way I'm looking at this card now is that it's a one of in Lightning decks, and not even every Lightning deck, because it can be really good. But I think what it needs is an easy way to recur it from the break zone so that you don't have to worry about hanging on to it.
That makes sense.
One thing that comes to mind would be the new Gilgamesh to like swing and bring this back,
That's a good point.
Like something like that would be really good. But otherwise, any other way it's probably too much work unless you're specifically building around playing her. So she won't slot into to just a regular mono lightning deck.
You're right. And even thinking of like Gilgamesh though, like if Gilgamesh, in order for that effect to work, well, no, because his effect will trigger before they even have a chance to block. So again, something would have already had to have taken damage when he brings her in.
Yeah, it would be something like main phase 1, you Alpha No, or you play whatever thing you have, you do that, and then you swing with Gilgamesh and something's already damaged, and then she comes in and draws 2. And with Gilgamesh, it's something that you're hopefully doing over and over and over. But like that's.
I also.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I also like the other version of Sakura. I think the other Lightning version of her is pretty good. So. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this card.
Fair enough. I mean, it's a common. It was also really fun in limited. It was really great. I really enjoyed the card there. Okay, next up we have Shinra Soldier, which is a 3 CP 7k forward. For each job Shinra Soldier that you control, that you have in your break zone, Shinra Soldier gains 1,000 power, and this is a standard unit. So there's this copy right here, you can have 3 of them in your deck, but there's also the Opus 3 Fire Cloud, which is a 3 CP 7k card that is a job Shinra Soldier. So you could have up to 5 soldiers in your break zone and then 1 on the field, and that one would get a plus 5k power boost. It's kind of a neat effect, especially as the game continues. Maybe we'll get lots, and this will be like some super efficient forward. We already have some similar cards like the FF Legends. What's his name? Shango.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's also like kind of like a big body for a 3 CP cost. So this is a lot more work than Shango is in Mono Lightning. I tried a Fire Lightning FF7 deck and to see if this would be really good, and it wasn't that good. It was just okay. It did bring me back to that 3 CP Fire Cloud, and he's actually really insane. So if you haven't, he's a really good card. There's just so many good clouds, but like that card actually, if you read its text, is pretty amazing. So go back and check that out. Forget about this card though.
That's fair. Yeah, he's got a cute little effect. Maybe it'll be better in the future if more of these ever get printed, but right now, honestly, the cutest play I can see with him is you pitch a soldier to help play him, and then, he's instantly 8k, but other than that,
Yeah, it takes a lot of investment.
Right.
Okay, next up is the most vaunted judge in this set.
Judge of Wings. He is a 6 cost, 9k forward. Job, also Judge of Wings. This, of course, goes with the Willis card we mentioned earlier. Really like the artwork. Again, I don't know this character at all, but he looks very intimidating. I love his helmet. So, his effect. The cost required to play Judge of Wings onto the field is reduced by 1 for every 2 lightning summons in your break zone. Cannot become 0. When Judge of Wings enters the field, select one of the following 2 actions. Choose up to 2 forwards, dull them. Judge of Wings gains haste until the end of the turn. Yeah, he's a big beater. I like him a lot. Honestly, the cost reduction I almost see as kind of a bonus. Like, I think he's solid beyond that. So it's just kind of nice that, like, if you got, 2 or 4 lightning summons in there, okay, well, there, he's just that much cheaper. The fact that he can just hit the board swinging is always great. Haste is always relevant. Or, late game and lightning has access to so much haste as is. If he's coming in, boom, he's taking out 2 blockers. That's pretty strong. So yeah, I like him a lot. Obviously, he plays well with Willis. He has 2 really good entry effects. Really, I like that it's basically make them weaker, or boom, here comes this big forward that's just going to jump in there right away.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you want him to dull 2 things, we already have Elba that can do that at 3 CP with probably less investment in deck slots. You don't need as many summons. Mono Lightning typically doesn't run that many summons, maybe 5 Ramus. But his other ability to give himself haste is pretty neat. We also have the Emperor 5 CP Lightning hero that also dulls 2 on entry. So there's lots of ways to dull. So I think that because of the other options, you're going to want to try to reduce his cost to at least 4 or something. Like you'll want to play this, and or maybe even have a deck with Willis. But I think that it's going to be important to have that cost reduction because there's already other options that kind of do similar things.
It's fair.
Man. Okay. Moving on is Desh, which is a 3 CP 7k forward, and he's got a bunch of damage abilities. Let's see here. Damage 1, Desh gains first strike. Yeah, that's pretty good. Damage 3, when Desh attacks, deal 2,000 damage to all forwards your opponent controls. That's pretty good too. Damage 5, put Desh into the break zone, choose one forward, break it. That is nuts. That's really good. Okay. I am a big fan of this card. At damage 1, a 3 CP 7k first strike, that's going to be fine. At damage 3, he'll be taking out your opponent's 9 to 10Ks because you're going to have Lulu on the field, and he's got first strike. And then at damage 5, he becomes an instant kill summon that you just play, pop him, break something. And I've been playing this guy, of course, in my Wind Lightning because he brings ping, he brings first strike, which is good with ping, and then I have these games where I like go all out, and then my opponent like board clears, they come back at me, they put me to 5 damage. All of a sudden I'm like, Kanakamoy, reduced by 9,000, Dash, break something. All my guys have haste, and I swing through, and I win. So he's been like, the deck has this big late game power, and he's been a major part of it. So I think he's just like a strong standalone card, and then obviously with synergies can be even stronger.
Yeah, he's a beast. He really messed me up in pre-release. I had to face a few people who used him, and I was just like, "Whoa, what is that thing?" Like, he's just so hard. I mean, the fact that he has a damage 1 ability and it's first strike, like, that's almost always going to be live. If that's not live, congrats, you're winning the game anyway. So the damage 3 is nice because, yeah, it hits their entire board, which is so cool. And again, the damage 5, there's no dull symbol, and I can't stress how important that is on all these cards because, again, you can swing in with him, deal 2k to their board. He's first strike, which means he can kill a 9k. And then let's say they block, or even if he goes through for damage, okay, now I'll break him and then hit your forward. So he can both attack and then break on top of it because he doesn't have to dull himself to do it, which is so nice. All for 3 CP, great amount of artwork. Yeah, he's a beast. I like him.
Okay, so let's move on to a card that is not nearly as good.
This is Knight. Job standard unit, not unique, so you can play up to 3. Category 3, 4 cost, 8k forward. When a forward other than Knight you control is put from the field into the break zone, Knight gains 2,000 power until the end of the turn. Ho-hum. It's hard to picture. I mean, if it was when they entered the field, maybe I could see that making a bit more sense, but when they die, so literally you have to lose a forward for this to get buffed up. I mean, and just everything I know of Lightning just doesn't play that way. Like, Lightning doesn't play in a method that you're wanting to sack. Like, if this was a water card, that would maybe make more sense, because water has a tendency to, want to chump its little forwards. But, I mean, I guess in theory, the most useful way I could see this is as a blocker. You literally block with another person. Boom, now the Knight gets bumped up to 10k, and suddenly you've got a stronger forward than maybe they were anticipating dealing with. But other than that, like, I don't know. I just don't think this card fits into how Lightning wants to play.
Let's face it, they printed a black belt in another color, and it has some text, but it's still a black belt. Before I move on to our next card, I do want to circle back to Desh because I forgot to mention his job, which is not relevant as a mechanic, but his job is Mysterious Man, and that is just a very, very good job.
Alex was so bored by this card, he went back to talk about the previous one.
Yeah.
That should tell you something.
Okay, next up we have Noel. It's pretty cool art. So Noel's a 4 CP 8k forward. He is a job commando, and he's got some text. So the card name Sarah you control cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities. That's pretty good text, and we have some pretty nice Sarahs. And then when Noel attacks, activate Noel. Null can attack once again this turn, and this effect will only trigger once per turn. So effectively, he can attack twice. This isn't such a huge deal, the attacking twice, because he's a 4 CP 8K and he doesn't have haste. So unless you're giving him haste and you're catching your opponent off guard, everything can block him, and then he just doesn't attack twice. He does activate right away, so it's really good against ice and some of their ping abilities that they might want to use when you attack the first time. So you're going to have to build around this card. If you're looking at it, it's almost like the two abilities too don't necessarily have to go to get well together, because the second ability is like something you could do with haste and dull and lightning by itself. But if you play this in lightning ice, then with dull and freeze you can also set up that second ability, but then also take advantage of the Sarah ability. So I think it's just like a really fair card. I think this is, when I saw this card I went crazy because I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is Estinian on a rare forward, but it doesn't have the almighty thing that Estinian has, which is putting whatever blocks it into the break zone. And without that, there's a huge drop off in power. That being said, it's a good card. I think it is.
I actually really want to build a deck around this. I want to build a 13 deck, Lightning and Ice, because I want to try out that new Sarah that I was so giddy about from Ice. And obviously, this Null protects it. I think he can be very relevant just because Lightning has so many ways to give other characters haste, like Alua special, hey, I'm looking at you. And anything that has the potential to attack twice. And I think he really fits in with Lightning because that's kind of Lightning's whole thing, is they can just kind of surprise you with how much they can rush you all of a sudden. I've been the victim of that so many times. And so just the fact that to threaten that, yep, he can just go in 2 times maybe when you're not expecting. I think he actually has quite a bit of potential. Yeah, maybe he's not as good as Estinian, but I still, yeah. I rate him quite highly, so I'm interested to see if he's actually as good as I think he is, or if maybe I'm kind of overrating a little.
It's tough on the 4 CP cost with no ETB. If they remove him, they're likely getting value over you. But even if he's just there and he's sitting around, and maybe they have an 8K to block, and you're like, well, I'm not gonna attack because I know they're gonna block. But your opponent is going to be so tense, knowing that at any turn, if you get your stuff together, that this Null is going to go off and that it's going to put an insane clock on the game. So I think for that reason alone, it's going to always be a good card because it has this potential to just kind of take over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sir, it's your time.
So next is our first legend, Lightning Legend of the set. And the entire time I knew him, he only ever had one goal: to cancel all summons and abilities of cost 5 or less. If he gets his hands on 7 CP, he'll be able to do it just by entering the field. Like that.
Tell me his name again.
Fell Thanos. Boom, 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 boom. For any of you who know the Avengers Infinity War second trailer, that was totally a reference to that. We have Fell Thanos! I went nuts when I saw this card, and everyone in my local group will tell you, oh, Travis, he's the sky is falling guy. Because I was like, oh my god, this card is too good. Like, it's so good. Like, this is just crazy design. I can't believe they would ban this. So, let me bring it in for a second. Fell Thanos, 7 cost, 9K forward. Job Agile? I don't know. I honestly don't even remember. Agile. I honestly don't remember this character. Is he also from Revenant Wings?
He's like the one that makes the islands float. In Revenant Wings, yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't remember him from 12. But he looks awesome. He's got a hell of a goatee and beard. And anyway, summons and abilities of your opponent must choose Fell Thanos if possible. When Fell Thanos is chosen by your opponent's summon of cost 5 or less, or an ability of their characters of cost 5 or less, cancel its effect. I think this card is nuts, and I know a bunch of people will say I'm overreacting and that, oh, it's not that good. No, I think this card's crazy good, because is he completely unstoppable? Absolutely not. Are there ways to deal with him? Of course. Does he literally shut down certain decks by himself? 100%. And I have also heard people say, too, like, in draft or in sealed, if you get this guy, there is so little in this set that can actually deal with him. I actually don't even know if there is anything in this set that can deal with him. I'd have to go through the whole set again. But because there's so many relevant summons and abilities. I mean, this is everything. So you're playing against ice, they got backup snow? No, that snow's dull and nothing. The only thing in ice that's commonly, like, Sid Alstein won't work, Kuja won't work, Genesis won't work. You know, the only thing that is like Sephiroth if you have no cards in hand, or what's it called? Orphan can technically get him. But like, he's just such good protection, and some people are like, well, you know, but you want to fight with him? I don't think I even want to fight with this card. I think I literally want to slam him down on the field, and now he's a lightning rod that says, hey, nothing you do works from now on. I get it. In the right deck, you could easily deal with him. You go, oh, well, I've got Veritas, you know, or whatever it is. But against the right deck, this guy just knocks it out completely. And I get he's 7 CP, but I think he should be 7 CP. Like, this card should be expensive. I don't want to see a card like this. I'll just pull it down for 4 CP. And in particular, what's so crazy, it's not just the offensive abilities. He steals your abilities. So, like, if you try to Belias your own forward, you can't do that, because Belias can technically choose him, so now it has to choose him. Boom, it gets canceled. So there's a lot of self-buffing abilities you can use that he just goes, nope, it all stops. Now that I'm done gushing about this card, Alex, feel free to bring me back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, no, he's fine. So
he's fine.
Yeah,
after everything I said, he's fine.
One totally off-topic note here is if you look at the bottom of the card in the fine print, it actually tells you which game specifically the artwork's from. So
okay.
That's how you can tell, like, all these cards are Remnant Wings and
nice.
etc. Or it will tell you if something's from like Dissidia Arcade versus the Dissidia Duodecim or whatever. Okay, cool. So Fel Thanos. He is undoubtedly a good card, and he is going to be in the meta because people think he's a good card and people will just want to play him, and he'll shut down certain decks. That being said, there's lots of things that do deal with him that are in the meta that you would have to be scared for, so you need to be very careful not to drop this as your only forward, because obviously Pfeifer and Veritas are going to totally wipe the floor with this guy. You also have to be very careful against Fusoya decks, as they'll also be able to deal with this quickly. Things like Bahamut Zero in any sort of lightning deck. Now we have Skyla, Orphan, are all good to get this guy. So there are things that are going to deal with Fel Thanos, but there's plenty of decks that don't have any of that stuff, and he's going to totally wipe the floor with them. But the other thing that he is weak to is that he doesn't have Brave like Arden did. And that's a really big difference, because you can leave him active and block only with him, and your game state's not progressing. Your other forwards can attack, and that's great, but your opponent will party attack over this guy, and you're never going to block him because you want him to be your shield. So it's not going to stop aggressive decks. It's going to slow them down, but it's not going to stop them, because they'll just party attack. So I think you have to have, I mean, just like Arden, you have to know your matchup. You have to have the right timing. You can't be running 3 of this guy. You need to be running 1 to 2, and you have to judge your matchup. Say, okay, I've got a forward out besides him. This is the time to drop him. And then other games you might have to say, okay, I got to cut my losses and not play him here because he's a huge investment. But I don't see any reason why, if Arden wasn't successful, then this guy can't be successful too.
And because people have made the comparisons to Arden, I think this card is better than Arden, because Arden had protection for himself. This guy protects everything, not just him. He protects your entire field, and to me, that's way better. Like, as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I didn't like about Arden, was that there were kind of, simple ways to get around him, Veritas, Famfrit, whereas this guy, he's protecting your whole board. And I honestly, and again, I haven't exclusively tested with him yet, so I plan to, and maybe I'll come back in a month and be like, all right, I kind of overrate him. Let him, is the way I see it, the way Lightning plays, let him party attack. Please, dull all your forwards so I can then rush in and crack back with all mine. And that's literally your only recourse, depending on your deck now, because I've blocked every single other ability you have. So yeah, you said it right. You're absolutely right. Bahamut Zero, Famfrit, of course, there's some things that are like, but I think if you're a smart player with this, if you see the kind of deck you're playing against, then you just discard him for CP if you have to. You just don't make that investment. Because like, all right, in this matchup, he's not going to work. But having that threat that says, hey, you lose now, All
Okay.
right.
Now, if you thought Fail Thanos was good, just wait till you see this next card.
Oh, snap.
It's Dark Knight. It's a 3 CP backup standard unit. When Dark Knight enters the field, choose one damage forward. Deal it 8,000 damage. So that's 1,000 above the curve for 3 CP, and it's also on a backup, which gives it a bonus for being a CP producer after that. So this is an over-costed ability at the downfall that it is to be done to a damaged forward, and at the risk of filling up your backup slots and not having the exact right time to play this. This is the type of card that I'm like thrilled about, and I put it into my decks and I try to play with it, and I struggle with it, and then by the end of the set I'm like, no, it's not competitive, but it's just like such a fun card that I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, you said it all. I like artwork.
Okay, how about the next one?
All right. Next one is Raiden from Revenant Wings. Which game is this from, Alex? So he is a 1-cost summon, EX Burst. Deal 2,000 damage to all the active forwards opponent controls. Draw 1 card. This is another one of your Dr. Seuss cards. He's special because he's card number 100 in the serialization, which is neat. I mean, he fits Lightning because it's 2,000 to active forwards, and Lightning always wants active forwards. Like every other of these cards, like everything on his text is fine. It's 1 cost. It's an EX burst. It'll draw you a card. It's always going to get you, benefit back. Even if it's technically if his effect whiffed. If his effect whiffed, would you still get to draw the card?
Yes, he is, because he doesn't target. He draws a card.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So he would draw. So like everything text wise is good, but I don't know. Are you again like all the others though? Even though nothing on his text is bad, is he good enough for you to run him?
Well, you know which forwards tend to be active?
Brave forwards?
Yeah, the ones that are going to block you. So, I mean, maybe as a way to top up all your forwards for 1 CP and draw a card, it's like a worse Cyclops reduced by 3k to your opponent's board, but like just helps like a big, if you have a wide, cheap board, it could help a wide, cheap board trade up while keeping your momentum going by drawing cards. True. I don't know, but that's really looking for the upside. It's not, it's just fine.
Given that its draw is not tied to its first effect, I will say this is probably one of the better of these type of cards that we got this set.
Oh, it's such a good EX burst.
Yeah, it's very good as a burst.
Now, you know what? I would totally see there be some players that would run this straight up for the EX burst. Like,
that's fair.
The players have done that before. They've run cards for the EX burst, so you could see this happening here. I personally hate this card because it kills Zusuhisa, and how could you run a card that does that to me?
Cold-blooded.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, next up we have Lightning, 6 CP, 8k forward. When Lightning enters the field, you may search up to 2 card name Odins and add them to your hand, and then you can pay 1 Lightning and dull her to remove 2 card name Odins from the break zone from the game, and then choose 1 forward and break it. This is a legend and has some sweet art. So it's fine. It's if you have your 2 Odins in your deck, it's going to be a 2 CP 8k, which is a heavy cost at the beginning, but obviously like net wise it's fine. That means you have to run Odins, which can be kind of tough because they're usually, most of the Odins are pretty fair cards. They all have, none of them are like terribly efficient, but then that second ability is pretty efficient, so there could be a big payoff there. But it's on a forward and it has a dull ability, which makes it slow and harder to use. But she does set herself up. She searches 2 Odins and then you can pitch them, and then for CP, and then she's gonna be live as soon as you've pitched the Odins and 1 turn has passed. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird legend. I haven't really seen it played yet. It didn't see any play at all in pre-release because there are no Odins in the set.
Right.
So we already have 1,000 lightning cards in this game. I don't know. I don't think it's bad. I'm having a hard time figuring it out.
It's when you commented on the artwork, and I do like the artwork, but I really looked at her eyes, and she kind of looks like you just like interrupted a meeting that she was in the middle of, and she's like looking over like, "What do you want?" I just had to make that little note. Yeah, very weird to release this card and not release a single Ode in this set. So this card is basically useless if you were to again pull it in pre-release or draft or sealed or any of that. You know, it's cheaper when it comes in because you're getting 2 card name mode, and so it basically comes in as 2 CP because you're getting 2 of your card value back. But yeah, the fact that it has to dull on, like, I don't know, I've seen some neat deck techs with this, and I wouldn't mind trying it out. But like you said, we've also have other good lightnings that are quite solid on their own. So not only has it been underwhelming as a legend, but especially compared to Felthanos, like, he was just so unique, and so like, whoa, there's nothing like that in the game, and it's like, oh, it's another lightning. Yeah, so I'm just kind of lukewarm on it.
Okay, so what do you think about this next summon?
Ramu, the great bearded one himself. Ramu is a 2-cost summon, EX Burst. Choose one forward that entered the field this turn. Deal it 8,000 damage. Love the Amano artwork. This fits in with the Amano summons. I could go either way on this one. In one sense, I could see like, that's just kind of a spotty effect. And in particular, I think it makes him kind of weak off an EX burst, depending on the field, because unless they have haste as an EX burst, you know, yeah. But at the same time, thinking about 2 CP for 8,000 damage is very strong. And what is like the core of the game right now? Enter the field effects. Everyone wants those cards as soon as they enter the field. So Ramu, I actually think this card is going to have a ton of targets. And in particular, again, it appeals to me because of its cost and its damage. 8k damage for 2 CP is very good. And I don't, even though I think there will be a few times where it might be awkward that, oh, no one entered the field this turn, so I can't even use him. I think if you're playing it smartly, they're going to have to put down a forward at some point, and the idea that you could instantly delete it for 2 CP is pretty good. I like him a lot.
I don't know what you did there. I love that. Okay, so this EX Burst is testing you new players to play your stuff in main phase 2 if you don't actually need it in main phase 1, right? Because this EX Burst will ruin your day. Now, if you need the ETB in main phase 1, then by all means play it, but otherwise this EX Burst should almost never hit anything, but it does sometimes. Otherwise, yeah, it's such a great value, and I've played this card already quite a bit, and it's actually underwhelmed. Sometimes it's been really, really good, and then a lot of times it's been tough to play with because you're waiting around for your opponent to play something. They play something, it's not that great value, so you don't play it, and then they play something else, and you're like, oh, I'll play it here, and then they play something even better the next turn, and you're like, oh, I wish I would have held on to this card, but there's also the trick of what are you going to hold on to it with? Like, are you going to be leaving CP open every turn thinking, oh, I'm just going to tap these 2 backups and play Ramu, but then they don't play anything good, so you just wasted 2 CP? Or are you going to pitch from your hand for it, and then as soon as you're playing it from your hand, it kind of almost becomes more expensive? It's not just a 2 CP, like, off backups ping. One thing that's really neat about it is that it doesn't have to be an active forward. It's just choose one forward that entered this turn. I also played this with Sid Brave Exvius, and that was kind of neat because I killed something that was 10k once with the combo of both abilities, although I think 8,000 is probably going to be more than enough most of the time. So basically, from my playtesting so far, I think it's a okay card. It's kind of awkward, but I like it. I think it's good. I think it's a really neat effect.
I'm glad you mentioned that point about not being active, because I remember there was one other thing about this card that I liked, and it's that Lightning is usually so dependent on having to have an active forward. So like you said, it's nice that it doesn't even have to be active. Now, granted, if it came into the field that turn, you probably will be, but who knows, you know, some shenanigans. Just nonetheless, the fact that, yeah, it does not have to be active. You can just...
Yeah, and they can't, like, dull it or something. Or, I don't know.
Right, yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They can't do anything to respond, like, as far as, like, dulling it or so.
I think it just would have been easy for them to tack that on, and it's nice that it doesn't say that.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, next up we have everybody's favorite character, Ramza. He is a 5 CP forward, 7,000 power, EX Burst. When Ramza enters the field, choose one category FFT character other than card name Ramza in your break zone. add it to your hand, so you can't cycle this guy with himself. Oh, by the way, he's a job knight, which is always relevant.
Yep.
Damage 5. When Ramza enters the field, you may play one category FFT character from your hand onto the field. And his special is... Do you want to see this one?
Sure, Robin!
Thank you. So it's one card named Ramza, 3 lightning CP, and dull him to deal 7,000 damage to all forwards. Again, all forwards, not all active forwards. Your opponent controls. That's a kind of a neat special. I like that a lot. His first ability is pretty standard. I mean, if you're going to run this guy, you might as well run Reagan. So you have to run this guy for the searching capabilities because he's a knight. You have to run him again for synergies with being a knight. You have to run him because of the damage 5, maybe the special, but you're probably not going to run him for the first ability just because of Reagan. Now, that second ability could be really neat. At damage 5, you're likely going to have 5 backups, so you might not be playing a backup with this, but you could play something like Mustadio. You could play something like 6 CP Agrius. Like, that's pretty crazy to think about, that you play a 5 CP forward and it plays a 6 CP forward from your hand that's going to play a 3 CP card from your deck.
Yeah.
You could also play 5 CP Delita in a combo with this. You could play... I'm totally blanking. There's a lot of FFT monsters you could play. There's things like Orlando, although that's more combo that you have to put together. So I think this is a let's wait and see card, because playing an FFT character onto the field from your hand is really good if we get like a 10 CP FFT character down the road. That is crazy, and then this is the way to like cheat him in or something. That could be good, but otherwise I think that he's also got a bad name clash, so probably won't see play.
You covered it pretty perfectly there, man. The only thing I'll add on is that because of the way the abilities are structured, I do like that at 5 damage you can actually pull out a forward from the break zone and then play that very forward that you pulled out. So, like you said, if Agrius was in the break zone, you could pull her out and then slam her down. So, but that's obviously only if you're at 5 damage.
That's a very good point. Okay, here is one of the most played new cards.
Yeah, it is Ranpier. He is a 2-cost backup, Job King. He's an 11 character. When Ranpier is put from the field into the break zone, you may play one category 11 forward from your hand onto the field. My goodness, that is just good. Like, it's kind of weird that there's no restrictions on that. It's not, of cost this or this, or if it's active, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, it's just... he goes to the break zone. You put 11 forward onto the field. The instant combo I, of course, immediately thought of with this was the Opus 9 Kane, which requires you to break a lightning backup. Kane comes in, lose 8,000 power, and I saw someone doing this. They had a lightning earth deck, and they played the new Opus 10 Shantoto, the 9 cost, for free. Just, boop, she comes in, and then her effect, like, ugh, that's gross. And again, lightning is an element that often wants to break its backups and has ways to break its backups. And yeah, it's any may play a category 11 forward. Doesn't matter what the cost is. Doesn't matter what the element is. Shantoto, Camlanot, like, gosh, there's just wow, yeah, what a good bet. All for 2 CP.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's So it doesn't really even matter that he doesn't instant value when he comes in. He's a 2 CP backup. Like, you'd be happy to put this down. And then, like, does your opponent want to break it? Like, go ahead, please, Archer this or Hecaton or whatever. Like, yeah, just, wow, this card's good, and it's already seen a lot of play.
Yes, I think it could have even seen play at 3 CP possibly, but 2 CP seems fine.
It's crazy to me that, it has no restrictions. There's no cost restriction on it. It's just like, yep, any element, any whatever, just play it down.
It's like you said, it's already seeing a ton of play. People are using Kane to break it, and then people are also trying Garland, as well as other previous lightning breaking, backup breaking strategies. And the 9 CP Shantoto that we got in the starter is the most popular target for this. People are also messing around with the 9 CP Prish. That lets you deal its power as damage to a forward when it enters, which is also very strong. I'm very interested to see if there's going to be like an Earth Lightning Prish deck. Now that we also have a new Prish. that puts these cards into your hand. You play Prish. It's going to put one of the cards that this can play into your hand, and then you could break it after that.
Right.
So we have like really cheap ways to tutor the cards that are going to go. They're going to pair with Rampier, so you can like Star Sybil into the Rampier, and then play Prish, and then play play Garland, all for like pretty cheap CP expenditure and then profit.
Yeah.
So.
Love the artwork too, by the way. It's one of the 11 screenshots that I really like. It's a great pose.
Okay, next we have Lloyd, which is a 2 CP 5k forward job Agel. If you control wind backup, Lloyd gains 2000 power and haste, so it becomes a 7k haste, which is a great stat line. He's not been good enough to make it into my Wind Lightning deck, which would obviously fulfill his requirements right away, because it already has Adele and Alua, and all sorts of other forwards that are just better. So I don't know if this is good enough in Constructed, but I mean the stat line isn't bad by any means. So I think it's probably just a little bit underpowered for Constructed.
Since you covered that so succinctly, I'll just ask, is his name actually Lloyd?
Oh, like I don't know how would you pronounce that?
Well, it's Llyud, so I called him like Lud, but that doesn't sound right. Like
yeah.
Lud, what a name.
I look at it and it screams Lloyd at me, so I'm just rolling with it until someone corrects me.
I also, that guy with that face being named Lloyd is also really funny. So even if he's not called that, I think I might just call him that from now on.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's like when everybody got into the game and you instantly knew who has played World of Final Fantasy and who hasn't, because everyone's like, oh, that Earth backup and a cross.
Yeah. Oh, last night at my locals when I played Aowen, which is Lon and Rain's sister, and her name is Hauyn. Her name is actually pronounced Aowen.
Okay.
Even though everyone says like Hound.
That's what I said. Yeah. Okay.
The H
Aowen.
is silent. Yeah. In the game, they say it's Aowen. So.
Nice. Okay. Hey, I learned something. Okay, that's good. Okay. Yeah. Let's do the starter cards.
Do you want to do the first one or second one?
I'm pretty easy.
Okay. I'll do lightning, I guess.
Okay.
The last lightning. So this is 4-cost lightning, 8k forward. She's Job Ravager. During this turn, if you attack with 2 or more forwards you controlled, the cost for playing lightning onto the field is reduced by 3, so she can go down to 1 cost. She has a special, Crushing Blow. It's a pay a special and dull lightning. Choose up to 2 forwards, dull them, draw 1 card. I actually like this lightning better than the legend. Just because, like, okay, the first effect's a little wonky. That's very specific, but again, it's lightning. Lightning has a lot of haste. Lightning's usually coming at you, so that's not unreasonable. So the fact that she could be a main phase 2 1 cost, like, well, that's value right there. And granted, her second effect's a special, so you're going to have a special, but I think it's a solid special. Dull 2 forwards and draw a card. Like, that's good. I guess she's just more... I don't even know if I think she's, like, one of the better lightnings, because there are, again, some good lightnings out there, but I think I like her better than the other one because she's just a little more consistent, and you can slot this one into more spaces more consistently without having to pile up on the Odins. A couple of the lightnings are very conditional on Odin, so it's nice to see one that isn't.
I think that this card is really neat, and I like the special a lot. I just don't have that much time to test, although now I'm playing online more, so that can kind of help out. But this is a card that I'm totally thinking, like, I wish I could test this and see if it's worth it, because I think it's a really strong ability. Reducing a forward, like playing a really cheap forward is great, and we've seen that in Wind with Vada, but this is a little bit harder to achieve than have 4 Wind backups out to get full value from Vada. So
true.
I think Greg Cole played this in Scions, and I don't know if we've seen another list since then, so I don't know if this got cut or if it stayed. I'd be very interested to know that, although Scions is the perfect deck for this because your entire deck has haste, and then you play a bunch of forwards, so it's very likely in Scions that you were fulfilling the requirements to play this card for cheap. So,
final note too on it, I believe it's just if you've attacked with 2 or more forwards, so you can even do a single party attack, and that should fulfill the requirements.
That makes sense. Okay, we've got another Ramza because they doubled up on all the starter cards. They gave him cards in the set as well. So Ramza is a 5 CP job knight backup, which is important because now we can search a backup in Lightning. Another way to searching backups is if you're new to the game, searching backups is very, very important because it guarantees that you're going to have a good CP economy in the game. So you can use Duke Tana to search Ramza, and then you can play him. So when Ramza enters the field, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 forward, 1 backup, and 1 summon among them to your hand, and put the rest into the break zone. You can pay 1 lightning, 1 generic CP, and dull Ramza, and then put them into the break zone. Choose 1 monster, break it. So I'm just going to go over the action ability real quick. It's really niche. It's kind of expensive, but unconditional monster break is good in a situation where we see lots of monsters. Is it good enough right now? I think that ability is probably not being used most of the time. But his first ability is pretty cool because I think you're more than likely to get at least 1 summon and you're at least to draw 2, right? If you're are you gonna flip 3 cards and all 3 are gonna be forwards? Or all 3 gonna be backups? Maybe. And then this is a 3 CP and that's not great. But I think more than likely you're gonna have at least a backup and a forward, or a backup and a summon, etc. So I think that this is kind of an efficient card that way, in that it kind of just cycles your hand. If you have some cards you don't want to play, if you have doubles, if you have backups, whatever it is, and you want to play this guy, then you're probably going to get to cycle it for maybe a better card. But I think people are definitely experimenting with him and running him and Duke Tana to see if it's an efficient way to set up your game.
The ultimate feel-good card, especially if you can get a forward, a backup, and a summon. Like, oh, that's got to feel great. I would personally never run this card because I just don't have that kind of luck. I am the kind of person who would flip 3 forwards and be like, oh, cool, well, there went 2 forwards that I wanted to use. And you're right, yeah, the second ability is honestly just too expensive, but it's kind of cute that they're like, well, we wanted to make sure he had something that affected 1 of each type of card, forward, summon, backup, monster. So while, yes, I would never run this because I don't have that kind of luck, I can definitely see his potential.
The first time I played him, I got all 3. I've never
Did you really?
Yeah, never happened again, though. He does put the cards into the break zone, which is bad in some decks, good in maybe like a recursion deck that could be kind of cool. But otherwise, it's generally not. It depends. Like, if he's putting forwards into the break zone, that's generally bad. If he's putting backups into the break zone, you're not as worried about it.
Right. Especially if they're copies of what you have on the field.
Yeah, but if it's really early, that could be bad. So, okay, this is the point now where we talk about Lightning as a whole, and I remembered by myself with no prompts whatsoever. So because of my victory, I'm going to go first. I think that Lightning got 1 cool legend. It got some very nice hero cards and some very fun like build around cards. And so I think overall Lightning did well. It got nice little additions to various decks when Lightning got support. Mono Lightning got support, and there's a few new combos to try out. So I think it was a pleasant set for Lightning.
Absolutely. What I really appreciate about Lightning in general this set is it just kind of got a lot of stuff that feels very unique, especially as someone who's only really been playing since Opus 7. A lot of this stuff just, again, feels unique. As I'm looking over it, like Ranpier stands out, of course. I like the Ramu. Desh is a really good forward. Even though I would never use it, Alice, the very first card, is very unique for the way it works. Aldo is just reliably solid. The Kanakami monster is great. And then Fel Thanos is just Thanos. So, yeah, I like Lightning a lot. I think it got some really cool stuff.
All right, well, that's going to be it from us today, but we're going to come back soon with our last major element, which is water. And then we'll also do we'll do kind of a video on dark and light, and we might put some other stuff in there too, since that will be such a quick video. But we're almost done with the set review, and it's been really fun so far.
Having a great time.
Okay, so we're signing off for the Mysidia Post. I'm Alex Scott.
And I am Travis Pfeifer.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. You can like and subscribe to support us further, and you can read the Mysidia Post articles at themysidiapost.com. You can also check out our Patreon if you want to support us more. And if you need FFTCG singles, then look no further than Cards That You Release. They've got great deals and prices. Check them out. Finally, I'd like to thank FF Decks for creating the best website for creating your Final Fantasy trading card game decks. They've also got a Patreon, so make sure you go check them out. They work so hard for the community, so let's pay them back. See you next time.